Let me let me introduce. This is my dad.
Work on the darn car, and I got pretty good at tuning up Model T coils. Something only Model T owners know about. Is Ted and I found out on a trip we took years later. We came across a guy that had a Model T, and he just bought it. And he couldn't get it to run right, and I said, "You want me to tune it up for you? You know something about these?" I said, "Yeah, I got one." He said, "Will you show me?" The guy was a good mechanic, but good mechanics don't know a darn thing about Model T coils. It's a real crude, basic system. There's a commutator, which is basically a timer, sort of like a distributor, which is what it is. It distributes the spark. It doesn't actually have electricity per se going through it. What it does is it grounds out, it completes the circuit, if you will, for each of the 4 coils. Each coil has a buzzer on it to take DC power and turn it to pulsating DC power so that it can go through a transformer, which is what these coils are. They're wood. There's 4 of them, and
They're like right here on the dash. I remember that.
It's right close by for the driver to
Sit there and play with them.
And it's it's getting its electricity from a magneto which is in the flywheel. The magnets are on the flywheel, and the coils to pick up the to generate the electricity are on a fixed portion which faces the flywheel. So when you're trying to start a Model T, you have to crank it over, and hopefully there'll be enough electricity generated to make a spark to get the coil to operate and make a spark hot enough to fire the spark plug.
Which I remember watching you do this as a kid, and that was, people don't realize that's one of the big things with the Model A is it had a battery, and it would spark, right? You half a crank and it could fire. Model T's, that magneto, you have to spin a magneto to get electricity to be generated. You don't just spin it a little bit because you won't get enough electricity. I remember watching you would jack up the rear wheel to give it less drag, and you'd be cranking like mad to get it
takes
spinning.
the drag off from the transmission.
But you have to spin that engine.
Yeah. But there is a solution to that, and Henry even put it in. There is a 2-way switch. One is magneto, and the other one is battery. He didn't give you a battery, but he allowed you to buy your own. And the batteries that we used then were dry cell batteries, and they were the same battery that the farmers use for electric fences. So there was a source of batteries. Put it under the seat next to the gas tank that you sat on.
Which, for my generation, the dry cell batteries are the big flashlight batteries. That's like a dry cell. Yeah. The big 6-volt batteries and the big flashlights. But the magneto doesn't charge those.
No.
It just goes dead, and then you replace them.
Right.
So unlike this, you actually had a way of charging your battery back. So you switch that to battery, get it fired up, and then switch over to magneto, so you're not running your one battery dead.
Right. So the battery would last. That was not really a problem because you only for that short period of time to get it going, fired up. So, but that's the story.
So you got both of these down to the new job in Connecticut, the new house in Connecticut.
Well, first let's back up just a minute here, okay? we're talking about this baby,
Mm-hmm.
okay? And you had mentioned to me at some point in time, I don't remember what it,
Oh yeah, when I tried to work on it
When-
in the late '70s, I couldn't find a crank for it because the engine was locked up, and I couldn't.
Oh.
It's hard to do anything with it without a crank, to get it unlocked.
let's,
So, what happened to the crank that you had?
well, let me back up a little bit here and say this, that, okay, we moved from Massachusetts to Connecticut, 120 miles. This baby here, no problem doing 120 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Once we had moved there, my younger brother Jerry, at that time, I was, let's say, 18. I'm getting to be an old man now. And Jerry was like 13. He's 7 years behind me. We decided to go to Canada.
From Massachusetts or from Connecticut?
I believe we had moved to Connecticut at that
Okay.
time, so we're
'Cause
talking
this was like-
about.
You did a 3-hour drive when you moved with this.
Yeah.
It's probably about
We're-
3 hours in this thing. Which, you think about it nowadays, 3 hours in a Model A is still, or a Model T is even longer. So it was pretty dependable. That was probably your first big road trip, was 3 hours.
So
Then you want to go to Canada.
what we did was, I had a rack that was originally designed for Model Ts to carry extra baggage. You've seen pictures of the Okies from Oklahoma going to California. They would carry all their worldly goods.
Oh, is this that accordion looking
It was
thing?
an accordion looking thing and it clamped on to the sideboard.
Hey, well, keep going. I think I actually have it here somewhere.
Anyway,
I remember as a kid, each time we moved the car,
okay, what we
it may
did,
be actually on your Model T up at your house, but I know what you're talking about. It's like it collapses and then it goes and makes a long accordion looking thing.
well, at that point I had worked for every dime that I'd made, and I was real tight with my money. I'd been told by friends that I was tighter than a frog's behind. And you know how tight that is. Watertight. Okay. Anyways, we emptied my mother's pantry.
So this is your big camping trip.
We're going to make a camping trip out of this. And we put everything we could in the car. We took off this is down on the coast in Connecticut, through Massachusetts, stopping at the Vermont state line, took a picture of my brother standing next to the Model A.
Welcome to Vermont.
Into Vermont. This was the third state that we were going through.
Uh-huh.
We get up to St. Johnsbury, and I'm going along minding my own business, and I hear a siren. I looked around. At first, I didn't see anything. Then I noticed a guy on a motorcycle behind me. It was a cop on a motorcycle. I said, "Oh," and I pulled over, and
So this is like, what, 1958
this is 1958.
on a motorcycle.
Yeah, they still use motorcycles, big old Harleys and Indians motorcycles. He just wanted to see the Model A, and we showed it to him and everything. He said, "You guys have a good trip." That's happened to me over the years with this and the T both. I have been stopped 3 times, and every time I just wanted to see the car. I got one like it or something like that. But we continued on up into Canada, and I have relatives in Canada. We went to see them, and of course we had a good time.
And it was Canadian farm land. It was a farming area.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
The area is actually, we're not just like on the border of Canada. We were well into Canada. We went through Montreal, in a Model A. We saw a very interesting, there's the St. Lawrence River comes down through, and I'm not sure just how the river's run, but there's a big river there in Montreal. And on the bridge was a car turned over on its side with two women looking out the door windows and smiling and laughing. And everybody was, jolly, happy and whatnot. They just thought that was real funny. They turned the car over, and we waited. Well, kept on going, and my ancestors were from 60 miles north of Quebec City. We went through Quebec City, and I spoke French at home, so that really helped us, because when you get that far into Quebec, you don't speak French, they don't want to talk to you. And they can speak English in a sort of way. Of course, much more so now than back then. But we went through where my mother was born, and it is, Quebec is very narrow there between St. Lawrence River and Maine. So we crossed over into Maine, and
yeah, Maine actually goes way up into
it keeps going
beside Canada.
They call it the first level, second, third, and fourth level. They were playing, and then after that you went into Maine. We went down through Maine.
So you're kind of circling back towards home.
We followed the coast, got down to Massachusetts, and we decided to see Bunker Hill. Okay.
Which is just north of Boston, right?
Yeah, downtown Boston. The guy that designed the streets, I think what he did was he had a plate of spaghetti, and he said, "We're going to make the streets look just like this."
They're all which directions.
So we could see Bunker Hill, but we couldn't get to it. And finally I said, "Oh, darn." That's not really what I said, but said, "We'll just go on this one-way street the wrong way. It's
just a little bit."
Yeah, it's only about a block, and then I can get it from there. Well, of course, there was a cop on that little street. He stops me.
Which is like a
"Hey,
Boston.
you're going the wrong way." I said, "Yes, sir, I know." I said, "I've been trying to get to Bunker Hill." I said, he said, "Yeah, I know what you mean." He said, he said, "Tell you what, you go up there and tell them I sent you, and have a good day, but try not to go the wrong way." I said, "Yes, sir, I'll do my best." And we went up there and saw Old Ironside and whatnot.
Yeah, that's a nice boat. Yeah.
Made it back home. And the bottom line, as they say, we spent $29 total
on your
cash, because we had all our food, and we would sleep under the car usually, in case it rained.
On the ground?
The Model A's got enough clearance, you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And but I'm glad we did it, because it was a great experience for both my brother and I. And the other major trip I took with this was, I had this Model A when I volunteered for the draft. That meant 2 years instead of enlisting, which is 3 years. I didn't know what I was getting into, so I figured I'd play it safe and volunteered for the draft. The draft board was real happy to honor my request.
This is like 1960?
1960.
Yeah.
By that time, I'd had 2 years of college, and I used this to get back and forth to college and to the jobs that I had while in college. So comes 1960, I volunteered for the draft. Boom, they sent me down to Fort Deluxe, New Jersey, and
You took this down to New Jersey?
No, not yet. When you're drafted,
you don't get vehicles.
You're lower than wheel manure. You know how low that is.
Uh-huh.
Right. So they sent us down there, and this will lead us back to Cummington, where I was first started working. They said, okay, they lined us all up in formation and said, we need drivers for trucks. Said, we don't have any support people. There are trucks in a motor pool, but we need drivers. Who could drive here? And everybody, they're just playing the game, you know. I bet they'll put you on a wheelbarrow. I said, what the hell, you know, I don't mind being on a wheelbarrow. I've been on wheelbarrows before, but I'll tell you wrong. Best thing I ever did. You know, I could drive like not a problem, and I got a chance to drive the military deuce and a half, which was something new for me. Not a big deal. Those Korean vintage trucks had
those slope nose ones.
The slope in the front.
Yeah.
And I call the transmission Slam-O-Matic. Because they were kind of rough. And
it's sort of an automatic transmission.
They were automatic shift,
yeah.
And they had like a U shape and whatnot. But the guys riding in the back would always complain because when it shifted, you know,
yeah, they're all
yeah, they would all boo back there and whatnot. But we're talking about late fall, early winter in New Jersey. The rest of the troops in basic training were going through the swamp, escape and evasion, all that sort of thing. And at the other end of the swamp I was in the truck with the heater on, waiting for them. You know, that was one nice part. You didn't have any duties. If you were a truck driver, you were
with the truck
because you were helping the people who ran the place.
Uh-huh.
You know, you were doing them a favor. And to add to that, which put me in a good position going through basic, our platoon sergeant had a girlfriend in town, and he had a room in the barracks where he was supposed to stay with us and babysit us. Well, he figured we didn't need babysitting, and he figured a girlfriend needed it more than we did. So he would stay there and come in early in the morning. Well, having worked on farms and milking cows and everything, I was up early anyways, and we worked out a deal that, you know, the barracks buildings had to be locked, and he didn't have a key. It was just a slide bolt lock. So I would make sure that I was right there, let him in. So he and I got along pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
That's my war story for now. Anyways, got out of basic. They put us on a flying tigers. Remember, they were the people that in China during World War II. They opened an airline afterwards with like little or no money. Military surplus C-54 is 4-engine plane. Carry, I got 50 people, something like that. Anyways, they were operating on a shoestring budget, and the planes looked like it. We made it to Fort Gordon. It was less than a month later, I think.
Which is in Georgia.
Huh?
Which is in Georgia. Fort Gordon,
yeah.
Georgia.
Fort Gordon, Georgia, near Augusta. I don't think it was more than a month later. One of their planes crashed and everybody on board was killed, and that put Flying Tigers out of business.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I could have been.
Yeah, could have been on that, which could have probably was a maintenance thing that they weren't keeping maintenance up on it.
Yeah, I've been told by people a position that they feel they know, that God, excuse me, God looks after drunks and fools. And I figure I qualify.
You're one of them.
Anyways, sorry about getting sidetracked there. Reason I mentioned Fort Gordon is because when I got to go home on leave, I'm on leave, and guess who was waiting for me?
So this stayed at your parents' house.
You know, it was from eastern Connecticut to Fort Gordon, about 925 miles. And
but you think probably 45 to 50 miles an hour. 900 miles is
well, I'll
18 hours.
I'll tell you what this baby will do. She will do 59 miles an hour. And I don't know how accurate the speedometer was, but I do know that if I tune I had the spark set so that I would normally run it just a little bit less than all the way forward. And when I got going fast enough, I could drop it down a little bit more and lean the gas. If I got everything just right, I'd get 59. I never could make 60.
With a tailwind,
Yeah,
going
maybe with a
downhill.
good tailwind, I might have been able to
Going
do it.
downhill.
But it was, you know.
Thanks for watching, and click subscribe to see more videos, and click the like button, and these will pop up on your feed. But thanks everybody. Take care. Okay.